Someday we're all going to have to learn
Just know that day is not today. Our speakers are going to go around the podium first, and then we'll go around. Keep it up. Yes, sir.
Good afternoon, and thank you all for joining us today. Welcome to For Kids Only in the city of Revere. We are joined today by a number of local and state elected officials. I'd like to acknowledge our city councilors who are here with us today, including City Council President Anthony Zambuto, City Councilor at Large and also State Representative Jessica Giannino, Councilor at Large Stephen Morabito, Councilor at Large Jerry Visconti, and of course our state delegation, including Senator Joe Boncore and Representative Jeff Charco. So thank you all for joining us. I'll kick off today by giving a sincere thank you to Executive Director of For Kids Only, Debbie Nealand. Debbie, and I'll thank you for your leadership and your partnership here today. For Kids Only has been an educational haven for the children of the city of Revere and surrounding communities, and it is a place where they can learn, play, and grow. And I thank you for all that you've done for our city. So I appreciate that. Thank you. Let's hear it. Yep. I also want to give a special shout out to Charlie Jafrida and Michael Hinojosa from our Revere Parks and Rec Department. Their willingness to collaborate with For Kids Only and their ability to come to the table and work together really makes today possible. And so if it were not for the partnerships that we have in the city, including at our Parks and Rec Department and a partnership with an organization like For Kids Only, we would not be here, and we would not be talking about how we secured funding for our families in the city of Revere to attend summer camp, and that was through the Step Up program. So a few more thank yous. I want to thank the United Way, Bob Giannino, you and your team. You and your team have been an incredible partner as well in our city, and especially through COVID. We've forged a friendship and a relationship, and we're so lucky and happy that you're here with your team today, and we want to thank you for your collaboration on this project. Also want to thank Commissioner Sam from the Department of Early Education and Care for your leadership and for the work that you do and your team does promoting and supporting healthy growth and development for all children. We certainly appreciate that. We saw that live and in person here today. And of course, we're always pleased when the governor comes through. Just a couple of weeks ago, he was down the beach. It was a little bit rainy, a little bit nicer weather today. Governor, you and Lieutenant Governor Polito have been true friends to the city of Revere. I can't thank you enough for the programs that you've instituted, the opportunities that you've created, and allowed municipal leaders to really do our job and support the children and families and residents of our cities. And today is a great example of how Revere has become an even better place to live, work, learn, and grow, and especially for our children. So now it's my pleasure to introduce the Honorable Governor of Massachusetts, Charlie Baker.
So thank you very much, Mayor, and Deb, thanks for having us here, and I apologize for that really rookie performance on the balance beam out there, although I must say I'm thrilled that no one in this room was actually out there when I was trying to do it was more like a walk of shame for me. It was a walk of fame for most of the kids. There's literally two young girls in front of me, and one of them had flip-flops on, and you would have sworn she was walking on this floor as she walked across the beam. I got about a step, and that was more than enough for me. Mayor, I want to thank you for hosting us today. You've been a terrific partner throughout the course of the past 15 to 18 months or so, and as I've said to you several of times, if I could grow a COVID beard like yours, I would, but I can't. And I really appreciate the work that you've all done to take advantage of the funding and the opportunities that are available through the Summer Step Up program. We obviously wanted to make sure there were opportunities available for kids, especially given how difficult, unpredictable the last year's been for children generally before they head back to school in September. And we provided a lot of our schools and our community partners with opportunities and funding to make it possible to chase a variety of these initiatives. And of the $70 million or so that we put on the table, along with the funds that have been available through community-based organizations and through some of the federal money that's been made available to local communities, there's a lot that's been done. And today's program is a great illustration of what happens when a whole bunch of people work together, whether you're talking about the legislators at the local or the state level, or the private nonprofits, they typically are a big part of this, or the folks on the executive branch side, or the people who work for the mayor and in his office. But the bottom line, the whole point here was to try to create some opportunities for kids to sort of catch up on what I think everybody would say has been a pretty tough year for them. And that translated into things like acceleration academies, which gives students a chance to learn and build skills by working intensively in one subject in small hands-on learning environments. Another are some of the summer school matching grant programs for school districts to offer 4 to 6 week in-person programs that have a mix of in-person academic and recreational activities, and then summer acceleration to college programs, which was a new program that we developed to help in particular those kids who graduated from high school last year and needed to sort of get a refresher on a lot of the stuff that they would need as they got ready and prepared to go back to school in college in the fall. We also set aside about $10 million for some of our youngest learners through this summer step-up program, which was to create programs exactly like this one at For Kids Only, which were preschoolers, kindergartners, and first and second graders, to give them a chance to learn and play this summer before they head back to the classroom. Some of them will be going for the very first time. I never saw so many Spider-Man masks that looked the same. And I'm very glad that none of us tried any of them on, even though they were offered to all of us more than once. I did take a really great picture of one of the kids with a Spider-Man mask, and he immediately turned and walked away, which prompted one of the photographers to say there's always a critic everywhere. Today was about being in Revere and having a chance to check out the program and to basically say thanks to all the partners who've been here to make this possible for these folks. I do want to thank especially the United Way of Mass Bay and Merrimack Valley, who also, you're working a pretty good COVID beard yourself, who have awarded more than $7 million to 29 school districts and more than 80 nonprofits to enhance their summer learning opportunities for the youngest learners. And that first summer step-up program launched at the end of June had more than 2,000 young children in it who were entering pre-K to second grade. We didn't ask school to focus on academics. We really wanted people to make this about more than that, including playtime, enrichment activities, and social engagement. Those are all things that we think have been in short supply for a lot of kids over the course of the past summer. And kids of all ages, I think, needed this opportunity to get some of the ability to deal with others, to socialize, to engage with their peers and with teachers in a present setting, something for many of them there just wasn't much of over the course of the last year, and to sort of get back into the rhythm of going out the door and going someplace and engaging with others on a regular basis. And we hope this can help people when they get back in the fall. I also want to point out that we here in Massachusetts will be able to distribute somewhere in the vicinity of $300 million in stabilization funding and a variety of federal grant programs to early child care providers, and they can start applying for that like today, right? Yeah, okay. These unprecedented funds will be distributed in 6-month grants to help child care operators and providers sustain operations during a time of what will certainly be fluctuating enrollments, and to bolster the availability of child care, especially in some of our most disproportionately impacted communities. And as Commissioner Sam said, and I did point out that at some point we're all going to have to learn how to actually pronounce her name, that people will be able to start applying for this today and can do so by visiting mass.gov/EEC. We expect the first payments will probably start to go out sometime toward the end of this month. This has been an area that Commissioner and her team have done a lot of work on over the course of the pandemic, have worked closely and collaboratively with a lot of our colleagues in the child care community to make sure that people were able to continue to operate and to operate safely. Their track record on that one, I think, has been extraordinary given the circumstances, and I think the fact that we now have almost $300 billion that we can make available to child care providers around the Commonwealth through this program will certainly help them deal with the bumps and the lumps that are probably going to come with the first few months of the return to school and the return to work that will take place in the fall. Once again, I want to thank everybody for the big lift and the heavy work that so many of you have done over the course of the past year. Deb, I want to thank you in particular for hosting us today. And with that, I will turn it over to the Commissioner.
Thank you so much, Governor. I totally appreciate the fact that pronouncing my last name has not been the priority for the last 2 years. But I'm so pleased to be here celebrating the successful Summer Step Up program and the partnerships that really have been aimed at preparing to make sure children, as the governor said, enter school ready to learn and be successful this fall. I really do want to thank FKO and Debbie Nealon and the entire staff here at this site in Revere for not only hosting us, but the work that is so evident that you do every day with children to make sure that they are prepared. And thanks in part to our partnership with United Way, thousands of children are going to have this opportunity this summer to use these months to make sure that they are making up for the lost time and learning that we've seen due to the health crisis. And as we know that families grappled with a number of challenges over the last year and a half, we saw declines in both preschool and kindergarten enrollment. But in addition, remote learning created opportunity gaps for children to transition back into school this fall, many of whom have had many limited experiences in person. So to respond to this reality, as the governor announced, that the Department of Early Education and Care, in partnership with the Executive Office of Education and the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, developed the Summer Step Up program, where helping almost 30 communities to offer full-day, in-person classes for at least 6 weeks this summer. And through partnerships and making sure that they are using this summer to help kids catch up before they enter classrooms in September. Research does continue over and over again to prove that these first years, the first earliest grades, build the foundation for long-term academic success for children, but both in school and in life. And as a former teacher, I know that those first weeks and days in the classroom matter. When children show up ready to learn, ready to work with their teachers, play with their friends, engage with the curriculum, that is the foundation for successful learning. And that's exactly what this program was aimed to do. Foster those kind of community collaborations that can provide families with the full day, robust summer supports they need, but making sure that that academic content is woven in to make sure that children are ready to start school in a few short weeks. It supports schools to also expand and extend their summer offerings by partnering with vital community programs and providers like FKO, who really can enhance their own resources. But most importantly, the Summer Step Up program offers an opportunity for children to get acquainted with school, to get acquainted with their teachers, and having an opportunity for their teachers to understand how they can tailor their learning to the children's actual entry point from day one of school. And really, that's how we build strong foundations for long-term academic success. We also recruited national content experts that helped enhance these summer programs. I know Revere and FKO are working with Project Adventure, which was really working on those social emotional experiences for children, really making sure that they're prepared to recover from the trauma that we've all experienced over the last year. I really want to thank the governor and the lieutenant governor, Secretary Pizer, and really the ongoing and unending support for this important program, but also the ongoing collaboration that we're able to support the communities with. And most importantly, I really do want to thank each and every community that stepped up themselves and came together this summer to do the real work. Learning from the last year, listening to the needs of families, and really developing those innovative approaches that truly meet the needs of children, and offering them the runway for success that we need in order to chart the course ahead. I now want to turn it over to Bob Giannino, who I just wanted echo the incredible partnership that United Way has had, and his team has really led the charge in supporting communities to innovate, to come together, and to provide that collaborative experience that really is going to launch kids on success. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sam. I'm not going to be the first person to make the attempt at her last name today. Governor Baker, Mayor Arrigo, for your tireless efforts on the health and well-being of children, families, early childhood educators throughout the pandemic here in Revere and beyond. We're incredibly grateful at United Way to be your partners. I can't dive into this work without two specific recognitions. First, Deb Nealon for the work here, you and your entire team at For Kids Only, for all you've done, not just in Revere, but in the many communities that you operate. We had an opportunity to see firsthand today the incredible work that's being done with young children to accelerate their learning, and we're incredibly grateful to you, all of your team, and the many organizations that are jumping in and partnering with us to support young children. I also want to take a moment, if I can, to thank and recognize my United Way colleague, Sarah Link, for her incredible leadership on this project. This summer, thousands of young people across the Commonwealth will thrive because of the effort that you and our other United Way colleagues have done to get this program launched. And so I want to say thank you, Sarah, for your leadership. On behalf of the United Way and our network of early education and after-school providers, the communities that we work with, we appreciate how much you, Governor, Commissioner Sam, and others have addressed the impact of COVID-19 pandemic and remote learning has had on some of our youngest and most vulnerable learners, their families, because as we've seen, they've been disproportionately impacted throughout COVID-19. Over the course of this crisis, after-school and out-of-school time providers moved mountains to stay open, distribute food, provide safe spaces for young learners, and giving parents and caregivers the opportunity to return to work. And now more than ever, young children need academic, social, and emotional support over the summer months to engage in learning and prepare for the return to school and classroom settings this fall. When the crisis hit last year, United Way immediately mobilized our deep partnerships with the corporate community, nonprofit organizations, municipal leaders like Mayor Arrigo, and thousands of businesses to deploy emergency financial assistance that impacted more than 400,000 people, helping them to pay for food, housing, utilities, and other essential needs. We also established targeted city funds in partnership with municipal leaders in a dozen communities, particularly hard hit by the crisis. Revere being one of those, but also Chelsea, Lynn, Everett, Haverhill, Lawrence, Randolph, and a number of others. In responding to the pandemic, we're drawing on our network of partners and relationships with communities to partner not only with nonprofit organizations, but with the Department of Early Education and Care to award more than 30 communities across the state with urgency and flexibility that meets the needs of our young leaders in this moment in time. I especially want to commend Commissioner Sam for her incredible partnership and vision throughout this work and the collaboration with us and with so many others in the early care field to launch the Summer Step Up program. None of this would be possible without your leadership, and we're grateful to be your partners in this work. Throughout the summer, absolutely. Throughout the summer and the fall, we'll track the progress in these communities to understand the impact that this program has had on supporting children and families, supporting the transition to in-person learning, and building strong community collaborations that continue throughout the future. We hope that this will build an infrastructure for innovative community collaborations that begin during COVID and are well positioned to grow and expand in the upcoming school year and beyond. Through Summer Step Up, we're learning how to improve coordination across different support services for young children and families as communities recover. We've heard many times that schools can't do it alone. Now, as we think about planning and recovery, let's continue to harness the power of community-based providers like For Kids Only and their wraparound supports for young learners and their families, and make them available at the scale that is needed across the Commonwealth. I want to thank the governor, Commissioner Sam, all of our partners for asking the United Way to step into this role, and we look forward to working with you throughout the future to build strong, resilient, equitable communities. Thank you.
Any of the folks in the legislature who help pay for this stuff want to say anything? Okay. Deb, you want to say anything? No. Okay. Mayor? Questions?
Governor, as you know, the CDC has added more Massachusetts counties to the high substantial transmission list, and at the same time, you're going to have a summer conference series. So do you think that your guidance, the state's guidance, is really meeting this moment? And would you consider something like what New York City just said they'll do today, a vaccine requirement?
So first of all, part of the reason our guidance wasn't county-specific when we issued it last week with respect to masks and distancing and really focused on at-risk populations was specifically because we knew that over the course of time, people would come up and down with respect to where they were with regard to county-based data. The second thing I would say is that there are counties in this country that have daily case counts that are north of 150 a day. The counties in Massachusetts that you're talking about have 10. I think in some respects it's very difficult for me as the governor of the Commonwealth, where 80% of adults have at least one dose and more than 70% of our population is fully vaccinated, to think about national guidance that's very appropriate for certain parts of the country and apply that the same way here. We're in a very different place than other parts of the country are in. I think our guidance, which really focused on vulnerable populations and people who are most at risk, was the right way to go, and I don't think a county-based approach at this point in time makes a lot of sense.
Governor, State Senator Becca Rauch says you are, quote, playing Russian roulette with Massachusetts families by not calling for a public school mask mandate this year as recommended by the CDC. She says she's just filed a bill to that extent. Might you support that bill?
We put out a series of guidance that said, among other things, that we strongly recommended that local communities mask kids in grades K through 6 because there is no vaccination program for kids K through 6 at this point in time. There may be one at some point during the fall, if you follow a lot of the commentary and the information that's coming out of Washington. Strongly recommend is strongly recommend, Mayor. And I fully expect that most communities will do what they think makes the most sense for them. We have many districts in Massachusetts, and the other reason we did this as a series of guidances, advisories, and recommendations is because different communities are in different places. You have some communities in Massachusetts where 85 to 95% of all the kids in their middle and high school are vaccinated. You have many other districts in Massachusetts where the numbers are far, far smaller. Again, I don't think you can apply a national standard to a state that is in the kind of space that we're in. We're also going to run a whole series of vaccine clinics on a back-to-school basis for kids in middle and high school. We're going to continue to make our very successful testing program available to any school and any school district that wants to participate. We had 1,000 schools participate in that program last year. We'd love to have 1,000 more. We'll also continue to do a lot of the work that we did last year with respect to guidance around sort of what I would describe as the rules of the road. But I'm not going to get into making decisions that I believe, in many cases, ought to be driven at the end of the day by the folks at the local level who know those communities best. That said, it's a strong recommendation for K through 6, the kids should wear masks because there is no vaccine available for K through 6.
Do you see revisiting that as needed, possibly,
Oh, we've always said, since the beginning of the pandemic that there is kind of a stay tuned rule associated with all this. But I think one of the things that's important here, and this is played out over and over again, is if you change your guidance every 48 hours, it gets really confusing for people with respect to what it is exactly you would like them to do. We created what I would describe as a fairly simple and straightforward set of guidances. Don't pay attention to the county-based stuff unless you want to. The most important thing is wear a mask if you're going to be around somebody who's vulnerable or you are vulnerable yourself. That's a lot cleaner and a lot simpler and a lot more straightforward for somebody to understand. And with respect to the school-based stuff, our view was there is no vaccination for kids between the grades of, between the ages of 7 and 12. Strong recommendation to communities around the Commonwealth that they mask those kids and the staff and teachers associated with that. At the middle school and high school level, work real hard to get many of those folks vaccinated as we possibly can, and to basically establish a standard that says masks for those kids who aren't vaccinated and those staff, but kids and staff who are vaccinated don't need to wear a mask, which, by the way, is consistent with CDC guidance.
Governor, your thoughts about the New York Attorney General's report about Governor Cuomo? And do you think he should resign? Do you think he should face consequences?
Well, first of all, hands up for all those who've read it. Okay, I've seen the news coverage, right? If the news coverage, which is extraordinary, is, and I would assume that it is, an accurate representation of the report itself, then I don't see how he can continue to do his job.
Governor, I just wanted to follow up on the questions about what's happening in New York City and the new mandates from Bill Blasio. Have you given any more thought to some kind of a vaccine verification system backed by the state? Senator Julian Sear said that might be a good idea as we're starting to see more bars and restaurants ask for that kind of proof, to have some kind of state-backed system that they can use as a tool.
No one's talked to us about that. But I've said many times that if a local business for their employees or their customers wants to pursue a strategy that involves masks or whatever else they might want to do based on what their general state of play is and the issues that they have with their particular operation, if they want to pursue a strategy that's different than the one that's pursued somewhere else, they are free to do that.
Last question.
Is there anything that you can elaborate? I know we wanted to get to some other issues, but could you elaborate on why you think Governor Cuomo will continue on the job?
I think look, these are public jobs, and they carry with them a significant amount of responsibility and accountability. And a report like that one, based on the news reports I've seen so far, I believe make it very difficult for him to continue in that job based on what I believe the level of sort of accountability that comes with this role or any of these elected roles is all about.
Thanks, everyone.
Governor, were you invited to Obama's 60th birthday party?
No. But I can tell you, if I were invited, I would have declined.
Why?
Because I think 700 people at an event like that is not a good idea.
Thanks, everyone.
Even though it's outside.
Even though it's outside?
Judgment call all the way around, but that's the beauty of judgment calls. We can all make our own decision about what we think is most appropriate to us. If I were to have a large family gathering outside at my house, that family gathering would involve at least one person who's over the age of 90. That would be my father, who I visited this weekend, and I wore a mask the entire time I was with him. One of the things we know absolutely about COVID is if you have multiple comorbidities, if you are over the age of 75, and especially if you're over the age of 85, you are at extreme risk of getting severely ill if you get that virus. And therefore, any big group that involves people who fall into those categories, I think people should either put them off or be really careful. Because for some of us who don't fall into those categories, maybe COVID's not as big a deal, especially if you're vaccinated. But even if you are vaccinated, among some of those more vulnerable populations, we should all be very careful. And by the way, no one's going to know who's vaccinated and who's not at that, I think, based on what I've heard. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks again to For Kids Only.